there's a saying about the Pakistani team, you know, they're also all over the place, but when they smell gosht, biryani ka gosht, when they smell biryani, that means there's an opportunity, they all come in.
Right.
The difference is the Australians are like that all the time. The great thing about Buchanan, and I think the most important thing that Buchanan did for Australian cricket was, now Shane Warne had somebody he hated more than Steve Waugh.
Yeah.
He said Gilchrist really has 4 shots. There are 4 shots he hits. He hoiks it over this side, he cuts, he drives, he goes straight. And he says, but those 4 shots he hits with something like 95-96% accuracy.
It's in the air. It's a 6.
Welcome to a century of stories cricket. My name, Cyrus Brochaskar, famous Shivaji Park youngster. That's the name of the club as well. But with me is my old friend. Well, old as in you've always had white hair. If you don't
I've always had white hair.
Joy. This is Joy Bhattacharjya. For 2 people who may not know from the cricket world, because he's world famous in the cricket and sports world. He's everything. You're a quizzer. You've looked after IPL teams. You've created all kinds of concepts on TV. You've done all kinds of things.
Yeah, I've even offered you a job once as a commentator, which never worked out, if you remember.
The ESPN thingy?
Yeah.
I don't know if we can talk about that, but yeah, it's a long story. But we did work with Taj TV some time ago, long. Let's not get into that, because although we are going back in time with this conversation that we're going to have right now, not that much in time. So the question of the day is Australian dominance. Not quite that kind of unbelievable, top of the line bulldog personality that they had from the 90s, from say 93, 94 up to about 2010. 2011 World Cup would mark, I suppose, the end of an era.
Yeah, absolutely. Those 17 years, they were absolutely fantastic. But if you have to really understand what happens to them, they actually start off a little bit earlier. They were the best team in the world in 76 for a year when, the West Indies, they smashed the West Indies 5-1. And then it just goes downhill because I think Packer takes away all their players. And when they come back, the mix is not quite there. It's not quite the same. And now the West Indies are dominant. Lloyd goes away, Richards comes. So for a long time, you see the West Indies dominating, and then along comes Alan Border. And Border's this guy who's phlegmatic, Captain Grumpy, they called him when he became captain.
I'll interrupt you for a second. For those who don't know cricket, Alan Border is a cricketer and not a movie. Because there's a very famous wartime movie of ours that did really well. Sorry.
Yeah. Going on, so Alan Border is a kind of guy who, I just take you back to 86, where there's a tight test and Dean Jones is batting. And he's scored a century. He's really ill. He's coming off. He's puking all over the
40
pitch.
degrees, humidity and all that.
Chennai. He's not well. He's had food poisoning. And he scores a century. He wants to come off. And Borders just walked in. It's not that Borders been playing for a long time. And he says, I want to go off now. Can you send a replacement? He said, get out and send a proper ... Aussie. And you can fill in the blanks with whichever Aussie views you like. Yeah. But that was what
send a Queenslander in? Because I think this guy's a Victorian, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So he made it into a regional issue. In India, we can't do that. You have to be very careful when you represent different states.
Exactly. And the point of it is that, Jones comes back, bats 210, and the test is tied. And if he hadn't scored that 210, it wouldn't have been tied.
Arguably his best test innings.
Innings.
Under pressure, humidity, all these factors.
Yeah, but he is that kind of guy is Alan Borders. So Alan Borders, strong, very, very this thing. He's got a coach like Bob Simpson, who's a very sharp strategist. Yeah. But the point of it is, he doesn't have the weapons to beat the West Indies. They can reasonably beat everyone. McDermott, Hughes, they're good bowlers. He can beat people.
But one notch below the Windies foursome.
One notch below the Windies foursome. And I think that is where the transition happened. And, by the time he goes out, he never gets to do it. He gets 93, he gets really close. They lose a test match by 1 run. And then Ambrose comes and just totally destroys them.
Yeah.
And that's the point, that Border's so close. So Border, think about that guy. He's won a World Cup though, but what he really wants to do is beat the West Indies.
And be the best team in the world.
And he never manages that.
In his entire career. Yeah. And this is a guy I remember reading about Alan Border saying things like, when I played the West Indies, I reached a point where I didn't want to shake hands or look them in the eye and say something nice, so, friendly banter and all that. He just got into this whole mood about, I have to, he was obsessed with the fact that I have to bring them down. Yeah. And how do you bring them down? By being they're the enemy. There's no friendship. There's no banter. There's no hand holding. Yeah.
And then Border goes out, I wouldn't say embittered, but he's I couldn't do it. And then Mark Taylor comes over, and Mark Taylor's a different guy because this guy's Captain Grumpy. Mark Taylor's this really cheerful guy.
We won't say why he's called Tubby, but let's just say that he expanded here and there.
He expanded here and there. So he takes over, and I think he is that much more ebullient captain. And he started now getting the kind of weapons that Border had just started. So Border's now, the thing about Border is he gets in Shane Warne, plays at Sydney against India.
He backs him when he's not, when he's been hammered by Shastri and Tendulkar, etc.
Absolutely, 1 for 150, but he says that this guy's got it in him. He takes him to England the next year. And you know the entire England story. I mean, he just keeps him in cotton wool, tells him against county matches, just don't turn the ball too much.
Is that true or is that a myth?
No.
So he doesn't reveal anything. He's like
he doesn't reveal it.
Donkey drop bowler.
Yeah, donkey drop bowler. Graham Hicks smashes him all over the place. So everyone's talking about it. Then comes the Old Trafford test. The first ball that he bowls in the Ashes to Mark Gatting. I mean, from way outside leg stump, it takes the top off. And it's, it's also psychological.
Wow.
Something like that happens. First ball, you're done mentally.
I can see it right on my head the way you described it right now. I mean, that's just it was like a blow. It's like a body blow, right? It's like the punch that really counts. I mean, it's early on in the series, but it's still
absolutely
huge.
And then by 94, Magra has also come. So while Border is gone, what he's done is he's given Taylor the kind of weapons to start getting 20 wickets and start winning. And after that, they go in 95 to the West Indies. And people say, okay, Magra is not a big factor. They think. But Magra gets a defining series. He tops the wicket-taking charts. On the other hand, you have Steve Waugh, Mark Waugh doing well.
And they haven't beaten them in 19 years, almost 20 years. Let's round it off to almost 20 years.
And then they've just win. They win that series, and then they never look back. From then on, you have that dominant Aussie team. Okay, 96, they don't win the World Cup final, but in the subcontinent, they still aren't favourites. I mean, they still aren't the best team in the subcontinent.
Well, they almost reached. I mean, they were there in the final against Sri Lanka. I mean, can't do more than that at the end of the day. But just rewinding a little bit, if you look back at that series, also West Indies start declining. I'm not saying that taking away anything from Australia, but West Indies start declining.
Absolutely.
They used to say that we have 25 fast bowlers in the cupboard. And suddenly it's much less.
Yeah, the cupboard is bare. And Ambrose is towards his end. Walsh is also not at his best. So you're looking at an attack which is diminished, and their batting is no longer has that power. I mean, Richards is gone. Richardson is there. It's no longer that dominant batting side that you see. So that's one thing. But what I want to tell you is that, when you look at this, you also need to look at it in terms of the kind of people who emerge, the personalities who emerge, the coaches. So what's happened? Bob Simpson is there. Bob Simpson is now gone. Okay. And you have a different kind of coach. Geoff Marsh comes in next. And Geoff Marsh is a very, very different kind of character, because Geoff Marsh is much more closely attuned with the modern game.
He's also played with a few of them.
Yeah, Marsh and Boone. So he's been playing, he's won a World Cup with them. He knows a lot of the cricketers, and he brings a different culture to it. And I think that's the thing that happens. Mark Taylor seamlessly gives in to Steve Waugh. And Steve Waugh, once he becomes captain, he sort of starts taking it forward.
But very different personalities, Joy, if I can interrupt for a second,
absolutely.
Right? But that doesn't stop the juggernaut going forward. The fact that Mark Taylor is one type of personality and Steve Waugh is a slightly more rigid personality.
Yeah, and look at these guys. These are tough as nails guys. Now, what you've got though from Border, which has stayed true with them, is that tough as hard as nails.
Right.
I mean, Steve Waugh has got dropped for his brother to play a test match. Nobody cares.
Famously has to inform him.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, he goes over to his parents' place and his brother's sitting out there, and he says, okay, I'm playing instead of you.
Yeah.
It's literally that. And I mean, the only other time it's happened is when Saurav Ganguly replaces Snehashish Ganguly for the Bengal Ranji Trophy finals in 1991.
But does he tell him?
In this case, somebody else told him. He didn't have to tell his
That's
elder
horrible to tell your own brother, boss. I'm in, you're out.
Elder brother as well. These guys are at least twins, there's some rivalry there. But, that's one side. And you have a situation where now this team has become a juggernaut. 96 they were close. 99 they come to the World Cup, but they're not doing that well. They're doing okay. Pakistan famously beats them by 10 runs, and in fact that remains the last time they lost for a very, very long time in World Cup cricket. And then Steve Waugh watches Manchester do...
first that.
Bayern Munich.
From what, last minute or last 2 minutes, they come from 0-1 behind or something like that?
Absolutely. Solskjaer scores, I think Sheringham scores, and from 1-0 down... 2-1. Yeah. And as a United supporter, I was also watching the game, so I remember exactly.
Hey,
I know how Steve Waugh
great podcast, Joy. Back down.
Sorry,
Red card.
Red card. So exactly that. So they basically can't. He sees that and he says, you know what? We can also turn around. And it's the same time. It's been happening. This match, Champions League match is happening during the World Cup.
Right.
So he sees that and says, we can go on to win. And then two famous incidents. I mean, the first one you spoke about, Herschel Gibbs.
Yeah, the World Cup.
Yeah.
I don't know, though, these are true, but did he actually say that? You just dropped the World Cup?
It's disputed, and he's also it's one of the statements that he also does not want to completely say that he said it. And he says, I said something to that effect.
But
the interesting thing is that he did though say, I think it was Waugh. Was it Waugh? I think it was one of the other players. I think it was Waugh. Turned down and said that, you know what, he has a tendency to throw the ball early. And
to throw it as he catches it. That I read as well. Yeah.
And that's interesting. So that's the other track I want to say, that in all this, you've got a very successful team, but perhaps the brightest and the best of them does not become captain, Shane Warne.
Yeah.
And I want to bring out one more fact. So you have a situation like that, okay, that you have lots of people who don't like each other, okay? And that's very, it's interesting, you know, Warne doesn't like Steve Waugh at all, okay?
They don't talk apparently
They
for a
don't
period of
talk
time.
at all. Steve Waugh doesn't like his brother also.
Really?
Yeah. So he has all sorts of problems with his brother.
Because Mark Waugh and Shane Warne are okay. I mean, it's a really odd thing.
Yeah. Mark Waugh and Shane Warne are okay. They're slippers. They stand in the slips together.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. There are lots of people don't like each other. But as a team, they are absolutely, when they get on the ground. And there's a saying about the Pakistani team. Ki, you know, they're also all over the place. But when they smell gosht.
When they had him run.
No. But biryani ka gosht. When they smell biryani, that means there's an opportunity. They all come in.
Right.
The difference is the Australians are like that all the time. They might fight, beat each other up in the dressing room, but once they come on the ground, they are ready to go.
What about the Indian team? Quickly.
Sorry
for another day?
No. I think Indian team
You're
nowadays...
ducking the ball, huh?
Yeah.
You're not playing that one. Yeah. Okay, fair. IDFC first fact. The Australian men's team not only won 3 back-to-back World Cups from 99 to 2007, but also made the record of longest winning streak in ODIs their own by winning, get this, 21 ODIs on the trot from 2003. In tests as well, they forged 2 separate 16-win test streaks from 99 to 2008. Yeah, you were saying, so that Steve Waugh was in charge, but there was all these different personalities to deal with.
Personalities, and that's what they managed to do very well. He was willing to bowl under Steve Waugh.
Yeah.
You know, Warne was willing to bowl under Steve Waugh and get results, but not still like him. And I think what they managed to do with that was fantastic. Also, what happened with them is they now got a ruthless professionalism in. And the ruthless professionalism came from the fact that so many players... So if you look at, say, somebody like Matthew Hayden.
Yeah.
Hayden's actually... nowhere in the picture. He gets his debut early.
And gets dropped.
And then really he makes his way back in 2001.
And he's a different guy then.
He's a totally different guy. So all these guys go out, become tougher and come back.
But man for man, they had some of the best players of the generation coming in also. That it also helps that you have so much talent.
Exactly.
You just mentioned Hayden, initially Slater, then Langer comes in as well. And then the middle order is fantastic. The 2 Waugh brothers. You got later on Darren Lehman can't get in and he's such a talented batsman. Yeah. Stuart Law, etc. There's so much talent available. Bowling, it just gets better and better as the years go on. They get Jason Gillespie, they get Brett Lee. Stuart McGill can't get a ball. So that's what I'm saying. The best part of it is the number of people who stayed out. Also, interestingly, how does John Buchanan become coach? Buchanan... Why do I feel it's not going to be a pretty conversation about John Buchanan?
I worked with John Buchanan at KKR and...
nice guy.
He's a nice guy.
It's a Mark Anthony speech. First we say nice guy, then we bury him. Yeah.
But no, how does he get in? If you remember, that Australian team we're talking about from 95 is so very strong. So very strong that they at least 5 or 6 guys who would have easily played test match cricket for anyone else cannot play. They're all sitting out.
Yeah.
So the likes of Gillespie, Kasparovich, Lehman,
Hodge,
Hayden. Okay, all these guys are sitting outside because there are too many good players there. Most of them are sitting in a place called Queensland. Who is the coach of Queensland? John Buchanan. After 20 years of doing nothing in the Sheffield Shield, they win the Sheffield Shield thanks to all these players not getting a chance.
And they've never won before.
Yeah. I think they've won once before a long time back.
Right.
And then it turns out that as they finish, Geoff Marsh has to go out because he decides that after the 99 World Cup, for family reasons, he wants to spend time with his family.
Right.
He goes back. So who's the most successful coach in Australia? Buchanan. So Buchanan comes in, and the great thing about Buchanan, and I think the most important thing that Buchanan did for Australian cricket was now Shane Warne had somebody he hated more than Steve Waugh.
Yeah. Is it true? They didn't speak either. So you got a Steve Waugh and a Buchanan as management in a sense, and Shane Warne doesn't want to communicate.
This is like an Indian Hindi film love triangle. Instead, it's a hate triangle. Nobody can stand
Reverse
anybody.
Silsila. Joy, you spin stories, bro. That's for sure.
And they still keep winning. Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. They still keep winning. And you have players coming in. Stuart McGill, Shane Warne's injured. He comes in, takes 10 wickets, has a fantastic bowling average. As good as anyone, Okay, go back to the dressing room. Yeah. Okay, out for the next 5 tests while Shane Warne is there. Brad Hodge comes in, scores a double century. Batting average of 55, go back. Mark was fit now.
Doesn't play again.
Doesn't play again.
Wow.
So that ruthlessness, that commitment, and that saying that, we do not lose matches.
But we also, let's quickly touch on the fact that red ball, white ball, there's no T20 yet, but red ball, white ball, both they were excellent at.
Brilliant.
Which is rare that the same, and almost the same squad. You don't change too many people here. Same squad is giving you everything in terms of white ball. 3 World Cups back to back, 99, 2003, 2007. And then you have the test record, 16 tests on the trot, which is broken by Hindustan Hamara.
In Kolkata. With Lakshman.
Yeah, what a partnership that is. That's a story for another time. But the fact of the matter is they won 16 on the bounce, which is fantastic. They won 3 World Cups on the bounce. So you can see that domination. Tough to imagine in this day and age. We have some 3 or 4 really good teams. I can't see anyone really winning everything.
Absolutely. And see, that is the thing. That if you see white ball cricket from 99, okay, when the match they lost to the Pakistan
early in the World Cup.
99 World Cup, in the league stages. From then to the quarter-final defeat against India.
Where Ponting got 100, unfortunately, wasn't able to win the match. Yeah.
In that period, 99 to 2011, they haven't lost a World Cup match.
Wow.
They haven't lost a World Cup match in almost 12 years. And that tells you something about dominance. And remember, the great thing about it is they've always had players to replace players. Like Bevan was fantastic. He was a finisher.
We forgot about Bevan.
Yeah.
Unbelievable finisher.
But he doesn't get a chance in test matches.
Yeah.
And it's
got
not
a few, but not too many. Yeah.
Not too many. And he never does it there. Andrew Simons comes in. So they have lots of these bits and pieces who are fantastic cricketers in their own right. And especially in white ball. And you had perhaps, and I think not enough is said about Adam Gilchrist because he shared the stage with so many people. With Waugh, with McGrath, with Ponting. But Adam Gilchrist is an unbelievable player.
Yep.
And what he does is he's destructive. So, Wasim Akram was once telling me about this series, I think, where they were playing in Australia. And they had Australia down at 49 for 4, chasing 250 odd. And then Gilchrist in those days always used to bat for Australia at 6. And at 6, Gilchrist comes in and smashes them and wins it. And then Buchanan told me something about Gilchrist, which is very interesting. He said that, somebody, and he was talking about another Pakistani batsman. I think in those days, it was Yusuf Yohana or one of the other batters. And he said that the thing about those batters is they place 8 to 10 shots and they play them at 70 to 75% accuracy. He said Gilchrist really has 4 shots. There are 4 shots he hits. He hoiks it over this side, he cuts, he drives, he goes straight. And he says, but those 4 shots he hits with something like 95, 96% accuracy. So you don't need to have a huge arsenal, but Gilchrist, within what he could do, was absolutely fantastic.
This is a real scientist who put a squash ball in his glove in a West Indies World Cup, if I remember correctly.
Absolutely.
And then managed to hit 100 in the final, which is a game changer.
Unbelievable innings.
Right, before we wind up here, what about the fact that India was the only country that started giving them trouble? Did you see that coming? Because initially, after the border Zamana, we were still, the upcoming sort of team. We weren't right there in the radar of the top 2 or 3 teams.
I think the thing about India is, one is in our conditions, we were difficult to beat. But for a while, they had the bowlers to beat us in our conditions as well. But I think that magical series, 2000-2001, changed it a lot. But we stopped in 2011. I think we were the better team. By that time, we had learned how to stop them. And even 2008, I think in Australia, we gave them trouble because we finally had the kind of bowlers. But I think if you look at it, India could raise itself up against the top teams. And after a while, that whole thing about, we talk about Ashes and all. But really, India and Australia have been the dominant powers for the last about 15 odd years. They are the guys who are competing against each other. Sadly, the other team you have to consider South Africa, who's really good. But these are the 2 teams who are really competing.
Are we talking red ball or white ball or everything?
I think white ball, especially because you're playing all over. Red ball, definitely. We are the only people who have beaten them twice in their own country this often. So I think we've got that special sauce for the Aussies now. And I think the decline of Pakistan is a great cricket power, which is sad, but it has happened over the last 7-8 days. So for us, it's now the VGT that we look forward to, not the India-Pakistan series.
Speaking of success, here's how I make all my money. I got the IDFC FIRST Bank savings account. There are literally 0 charges on all the savings account services, and you can get up to 7.25% interest per annum by just keeping money in your savings account, which gets credited monthly. So, before next week's episode, visit the IDFC FIRST Bank website and get more details. Okay, as we wind up, let's talk about the Australian wind up, as in wind down. So dominating, but towards the second half of the 2005-10, that period, post the Ashes, which they lose, the Flintoff Ashes, if you want to call it that, we have the decline setting in.
Yeah, I mean, they do well in the Ashes back home. But then after that, what happens? They lose some of their most important pieces. They lose Waugh, they lose Langer, and they lose Magra. And you see, getting 20 wickets, these were the guys you depended upon to get 20 wickets for you. Damien Martin is already gone. Okay, so that takes away a huge chunk
Magra
of what
Waugh is
they
a
can
huge
do.
chunk, yeah.
And then after that, Gilly also doesn't last for very long after that. So you have a situation where that powerhouse team is not there. And what happened is till then, they always managed to get replacements.
Right.
But they never managed to really get proper replacements after that. They win, of course, their World Cup in 2015. But after that, I think the biggest blow to them was Sandgate also. Because when Sandgate happens, they reach a stage where suddenly the bad Australian doesn't want to be looked upon as a bad Australian.
We missed the bad Australian.
Yeah, before that they say, we are bad. We are like this. We
Ian
don't
Chappell's,
care. We don't care.
Ugly Australian
Now
image.
these guys are apologizing.
Yeah.
And moment they start apologizing, they don't seem to be as scary.
No,
Let's
they lose
forget
that
about it.
edge.
Yeah.
That edge comes like McEnroe's behavior. Without that, he wouldn't have been McEnroe, you know.
Correct.
I think Lara would do the same thing. He would wind himself up and get into fights and all. Some people need that. And the Aussies need that adrenaline. They need to act like wolves hunting together. And suddenly you want them to be woke. I'm not against woke, ladies and gentlemen. But in Bengali, we say bhok. Am I right, Joy?
Yeah, we don't have
we don't have to be so bhok, yaar. So frankly, again, this is a little intangible concept. But you think that's the reason why they perhaps aren't as dominant? They're still dominant, but not as dominant as the team we've discussed.
I think, and they just, they have match winners. I have to say, Cummins is probably going to go back down in history as one of the greatest bowlers in history. Stark is on and off very, very good. I don't think they have the kind of batting firepower that they did at their best.
Yeah, the batting is looking very shaky. If I was an Aussie supporter, I'd be very worried.
Yeah, and of course, my theory for that, and we'll discuss this over many, many episodes, is the fact that you train every day to run a 100-meter T20,
right?
And then you expect them to play a marathon test match and do well.
I've got better news for you. Now, T10 is coming with a big flavor. So I think T20 is going to be like a test match for us at some point. So better enjoy these moments as you can. But that's it on this episode of Century of Stories Cricket with Joy. And Joy, as we say bye, who was your favorite Aussie cricketer from that period?
If I had to go with one, Adam Gilchrist, because he was a surprise, he was an Australian who always walked, which was unbelievable for me.
Yeah, well, at least second half. I won't correct you on that. Second half for sure. But my favorite would be the one and only Shine Warne. So we can end with you being Gilchrist and me being Warne. So I bowl, you have to say bowling Warney.
Bowling Warney.
Come on, it's not bowling Warney. Let's try it again. Bowling Warney.
Bowling Warney.
Yep, that's all we have time for on the Century of Stories Cricket with Joy Bhattacharjya, Dr. Joy Bhattacharjya, PhD in sports. Before we wrap up, a quick warning from IDFC FIRST Bank about fake job scams. Scammers pose as recruiters with attractive job offers, creating fake postings and websites. They may even conduct fake interviews to steal your personal info or ask for money. Research the company, beware of unrealistic job offers, and be cautious of unsolicited emails. Never pay for a job or share sensitive information. I have some information I want to share with you. This episode is over. I have to go.